I'm going to be talking about life in the soil. Just to give you a little bit of my background, because people seem to like to know about that, I have the alphabet soup after my name. Ooh-hoo-hoo. Yes, I actually have the doctor hanging out there. I am president of Soil Food Web Incorporated now. The website is www.soilfoodweb.com and the email address there. So just little bit of background there. I grew up in Minnesota, and can you hear the accent every once in a while? You betcha, don't you know? And for sure. So, yeah, the Minnesota comes out every once in a while. I live in Oregon now. My husband is still a professor at Oregon State University. He is a nematologist. He works with the nematodes in the soil that eat my critters. So I work with the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, and have picked up a lot about nematodes and microarthropods because of working with my husband. So often people aren't quite certain why they need to know about biology in the soil. And so a little bit of, let's make sure you understand where we're going with all of this. If we have healthy soil, and therefore healthy plants, given that this is the International Year of the Soil, and yes, I played a large role in that in the United Nations to get that to come about. Healthy soils, healthy plants. We don't need to have toxic chemicals to grow our plants. Even in the organic world, we are allowed to use pesticides. Copper kills things. So when we put out a copper, when we put out sulfur, when we put out sulfates, copper sulfate, that's a pesticide, guys. Why are we allowed to use it in the organic world? Just because we've used it since the Roman Empire does not mean that it's plant-friendly, that it's life-friendly. You are killing things, and you're not killing just the disease-causing organism. You're killing a whole bunch of beneficials when you use materials like that. If you use rotenone, if you use natural products in unreasonably high concentrations, we're killing the very things that would be supporting the life of our plant. Okay, so we didn't know that. Need to change our processes. So how do we get off the toxic chemicals? So whether you're a chemical grower, a conventional toxic chemical grower, or an organic grower, we need to understand everything we're doing out there in the field. You know, I'd like to talk about it as being organic from the heart, doing the right thing, understanding what we're doing with every single management that we're performing. And that's where we're going to go today, is getting you to understand what's going on with the life in the soil, how to manage it, you know, enhance it, bring it along. The more we can get this life back into our soil, the less you have to work. How many of you would like to work less? Yeah. Okay, so you want to come here and listen to this. So you understand what the symptoms are, what does it mean when, and then what biology do we need to get back into the soil when we have these different problems. So we don't have to be using toxic chemicals of any kind. If we get the biology back into the soil, we will have the proper balance of nutrients being presented to our plants right at the root surface. How does that work? How is it that all of the nutrients, the balance of every nutrient your plant requires, how can it be presented to that plant at the surface of the root system? So we need to go through that so you understand there is no need for organic or inorganic fertilizers. You have more than enough nutrients in your soil. There is no soil on this planet that lacks the nutrients to grow plants. So why are we putting out manure? Why are we putting out compost to increase the mineral nutrients in our soils? Why are we using rock dust? Why are we putting out lime and gypsum? These are all things that quite often are salts, and they will kill the organisms in your soil, so you're losing your workforce. If you kill these organisms in the soil, your workers are no longer present, then you have to do their job. And we're not good at it. We do not know what our plant requires every single second of every day. And it changes. This second to the next second to the next second to the next second. How can you keep up with that? You can't. So how do you put the workers back into your soil so that they take care of all of this? How do you put the plant back in control of its own life? So that's where we're going to be going today, is to explain all of that. If our plants have the proper balance of nutrients being presented to them every second of every day, they will not be stressed. They will not attract insect pests. They will not allow the disease-causing fungi, the disease-causing bacteria, to colonize their roots or their plant surfaces, your fruits. They are not stressed in any way. And so they have all the nutrients that they require, and that is what makes them taste good. When you take a bite out of something and it's like, oh, what's going on with that piece of lettuce? Ugh. Okay, don't eat it, because your taste buds are telling you that something's really out of balance in that lettuce or in that carrot or in that cole or kale crop. There's a problem. Don't eat it. You're giving yourself some inappropriate nutrition. Something's out of balance. Way too much nitrate. Way too much something else. So how do we make sure that the proper balance of nutrients is always going to be present? So we're going to go there. Flavor always depends on the balance of all the nutrients. If you put out a nitrate fertilizer, or somebody puts out a nitrate fertilizer, you're pushing way too much nitrate on that plant. And it's going to have to luxury consume that nitrate. And so you get that bitter flavor in the leaves. There's too much nitrate taken up. That plant sequesters it in the leaf, in the fruit, in the stem, and so it tastes bad when we consume it, when your animals consume it. So balance, flavor. Where do plants get their nutrients from? Do they come through the foliage above ground, or do they come through the root system? Your plant only gets 2 nutrients from above ground. Only 2. How many nutrients does your plant require? Lots. Yeah, we don't agree about this in the scientific world. You got to enjoy that. You know, think about when I was a kid, 50 years ago. There were only 3 nutrients that you needed to pay attention to, right? Yeah. NPK, that's it. That's all you have to put out there. Yeah, good luck. Because your plant does not grow on NPK alone. So by the time I got to junior high, it was 8 essential nutrients. So we added sulfur, calcium, boron, a little bit of iron. So 8 essential nutrients. By the time I got to college, it was 18 essential nutrients. We had the data showing that if your plant didn't get enough of all 18 of these, you're not going to be able, you won't be able to grow healthy plants. They will probably be susceptible to diseases. You're going to have to put on an inorganic fertilizer to supply. Why would an inorganic fertilizer be the way to supply these nutrients to your plants? Think back in the course of history. How long have inorganic fertilizers been put out on the surface of the soil? 60 years. You go back 200 years ago. How did we grow plants? Oh my gosh, did we manage to grow plants 500 years ago? And we fed everybody. Today even, we have more than enough food to feed everybody on this planet a really good, healthy diet. There is no lack of food on this planet. The problem is the political situation. How do you get the food to the people who are starving to death? And let's not worry about the people who are starving to death over in India. We have people starving to death here in the United States. Could we deal with that, please? That's a political problem, a sociological one. We don't lack food. So why does Monsanto say we have to have genetically engineered organisms because we're going to run out of food in 2025 if we don't go down the GMO biotech pathway? That's utterly ridiculous. We're not going to run out of food. What are we running out of right now that will take care of every human being on this planet long before we reach 2025? Live soil and clean water. What's the relationship between live soil and clean water? Yeah, they're really one and the same. If you don't have this biology in your soil, most of your nutrients wash out of your soil and end up in your drinking water. In the state of Iowa, there are no wells that you can drink directly from because they are so high in nitrate and atrazine and Roundup concentration. And that's spreading throughout the western part of the United States. I was just at a conference in Burlington, Colorado. And when you went to the kitchen, when you went to the bathroom, there were signs plastered all over that said, don't drink the water because it's too high in nitrate. Drink this water, you will no longer have kidneys left. Oh yeah. So what are you supposed to drink? And if you put that on your plants, what's it going to do? Lack of clean water is what's going to take us out, not lack of food. So get our priorities right. So all but 2 nutrients come from the soil. What are the 2 nutrients that come from above ground? CO2, carbon dioxide, and photons or energy, sunlight. How do you store sunlight energy? You take 2 carbon dioxides and you bond the carbons from those carbon dioxides together. You blow off the oxygen, don't need, that's a waste product from your plant's point of view. And so those 2 carbons storing sunlight energy in the bond between those 2 carbons. That's the only thing that we get from above ground. Kind of important, stored energy. But all the other nutrients must come from the root system. How does that work? I want to try to explain that to you today, and how it is that the biology affects and controls those kinds of processes. Now, today, while I'm talking, I want to point out the ecological monograph, because this is where we really got started trying to understand all of this. When I was working on my PhD at Colorado State University, a group there at the Natural Resource Ecology Lab, headed by Dave Coleman, they had gone around the world with the International Biological Program, and they had documented how different the bacteria and the fungi and the protozoa and the nematodes and the microarthropods and the spiders and the voles and the shrews and the mice and the, everything in these different ecosystems, completely different in all these major biomes all over the world. So why? What's the point and purpose of having all of these organisms? We didn't understand back in the middle of the 1970s why it was important to have these organisms in our soils. So we embarked on trying to understand that. So this is the most referenced paper in the world of soil biology or soil ecology. It is where we went through and established what the role and function of all these organisms actually were. So here's the start. So we're going to determine what these organisms do. And so I'm going to go through that with you today.